Okay, I call the meeting to order and then start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Somebody to read this, sorry, it's easy.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just ID.
Got three.
Oh, yeah.
And then Len, you're the runner of the meeting, right? Is that what was decided?
That's what I've been told.
I'd like to make a motion
Yeah.
to give Len the authority to run the meeting.
I'll second.
You've got a printout, right, Len? You normally come with one? Or do you, yeah, you're good.
Know me in paper.
I figured you had one.
Okay. All those in favor?
And Lenny abstains, just for the record.
All right, Len, it's your show.
Oh, thank you, sir. First order of business is approval of the agenda. I would make a motion that we approve the agenda as it is.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Carol. Discussion? Anything we need to add? No? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Public input and announcements? None? Okay. And then we'll take no action on no public comments. Approval of minutes from 10:16. I, again, will make a motion that we approve those minutes as presented.
I'll second it
For discussion.
for discussion.
I
Yep.
just need to be added to in-person attendance.
The other, it also says it was at Mill River, which is in Shrewsbury, right?
Shrewsbury.
Oh, yep.
At the top section.
And then, it's just a little thing, but it confused me because it was me. Under the Community Engagement Committee, let's see, I think it said she discussed upcoming events, but I guess it was me, so you,
Yeah, I think that's important, though.
I want my name.
Yeah.
I want credit because I discussed
Well,
something.
she doesn't.
So anyway, that was the only thing that I saw. Otherwise, it was great. Who did the minutes anyway? Because I know Rebecca couldn't be there. Were you there?
I watched the recording.
Oh, and you did it after? Excellent job.
As a person who had to do the minutes for a long time in personnel, I can't tell you how nice it is not to have to do the minutes.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
thank you tremendously,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
always, always.
Any other changes in the minutes? So we have moving it to Shrewsbury, including Kim as an in-person person. And under community engagement,
Oh.
it will say Carol.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not on the in-person, am I? I'm not on the in-person. Am I in the right minutes? No.
Yeah,
No, you're not on there either. Now that
Yeah,
I'm-
I'm not on it. I was live.
okay, so Carol should be added to that.
Okay.
Anything else? So, with those changes, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Thank you. That's done. Update on world language instructor.
We've got Katya Cook here.
Yes, that
Sure.
is me. Good evening, I'm Katya Cook, and I'm the head of the World Language Department here at Mill River.
where we have 3 world languages, French, Spanish, and Russian. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about our programs. So, next slide, please. So if you look at the Agency of Education's Portrait of a Graduate, what we hope high school students can do by the end of their high school careers, and under global citizenship, and if you just hit it one more time, right? Yep. There is number 3, which is that students study a non-native language and understand the importance of learning other cultures. So what we are doing in our program fully supports the ideals of a Vermont Portrait of a Graduate. Next slide, please. Sorry.
Yep, all good.
Our program is informed also by national standards and the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages, that's that ACTFL, has set forth 5 goal areas for world readiness in language, and those are communications and cultures and connections, comparisons, and communities, as well as a proficiency scale. So when we talk about students being graded on a proficiency scale, world language was actually at one of the vanguards in that realm. And you'll notice it's an inverted pyramid. This is the development of a learner's language over time. So most students who know nothing start at the very bottom of that pyramid at the novice level. And you gradually make your way up, noticing that as you go higher, it gets wider and wider. That expresses the advancing levels and amounts of vocabulary you need to reach the next level. What do levels mean? Well, by the end of 4 solid years of language at Mill River, we hope to get students to be at the intermediate mid. Some who are very motivated and talented can get to be intermediate high level, which means they can function on a daily basis in their lives for the most part, not going into great depth about things, but being able to function, and then advancing towards being able to use the language for professional purposes, which would be the advanced level. Next slide. So what are we doing at Mill River? At Mill River, the vast majority of students take at least 1 year of a world language to fulfill a graduation requirement. And we tell students who are considering attending college to plan to do 2 to 4 years of the same language in order to be ready for that. In our evaluations, in our grading system, we focus on the goal areas of communication and culture because there are so many descriptives for all of the 5. So just to keep it a little less cumbersome, we focus on communication and culture. And in the last couple of years, we've started offering language to students in 7th grade, a full year of world language, same as the high school level. And so what we're finding as we've gone on in time is that by 10th grade, students are running out of language courses. They're doing first level in 7th grade, second level in 8th grade, third level in 9th grade, and 4th level in 10th grade. They're running out of language at the end of 10th grade. Next slide, please.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Could they start another language?
So absolutely, and we
They
do
wanted
encourage that, or they could even try to do multiple languages at the same time if that is interesting for them. Yes?
Yeah, I have another question. When they start in 7th grade, is it one specific language or is it more of a general experience to be able to
So,
choose?
good question. Back in the day, we did sort of a language experience where they had French and Spanish, and it wasn't even a full year. Now, we go whole hog into 1 full year of a world language. So,
That's good.
yeah. And for the most part, they can do it. Yeah. We don't really modify for middle school level compared to high school freshmen. So this slide kind of shows you what kids can do with language at the different levels. So level 1, it's really just these memorized utterances. They're just memorizing phrases. So they might sound kind of fluent, but really it's memorized. By level 2, they are starting to create with language, putting strings of sentences together on their own. Level 3, again, that's where we're like, okay, can you start to talk about everything you do in your daily life with a friend or with a peer? And then by level 4, we're hoping they can be integrating other sources into their language, especially if they're going to give a presentation, and also being able to give opinions about things, justifying why they think something should be that way. Thank you. Next slide. So, French program at Mill River, it's taught by me and by Madame Savory. And I'm currently teaching the level 1s, 3s, 4s. And Madame Savory is doing level 2 because she's also an ELA teacher. So again, these are just some examples of topics that we do at the different levels. We do more than that, obviously, but those are just some examples. The methodology we're using is called comprehensible input, which just means we're trying to speak in the target language at a level the kids understand, maybe plus a little bit more. And performance-based assessments, that comes, it's the latest thing. Rather than just a pen and paper test, or there might be an oral interview aspect of it. With these, we're having them interpret language for listening and reading, as well as preparing some sort of presentation to give as part of their assessment. We have sometimes in the past had AP French language and culture, and it is rare, but this year we have one student who is also in the room with us doing an independent study in AP French language and culture.
So that's the only way to do the AP is an independent study?
Yes, we don't have a class period that could match that right now. Spanish program with Ms. Jennifer Martin, and same kinds of things, comprehensible input. She says she likes to do a lot of project-based learning. At level 1, she starts them off with a research project on why learn a world language, helping them to create for themselves a reason for wanting to know a world language. And since then, too, we've added it to French 1 and Russian 1, just so that we have a common assessment for the students in all the languages. Next slide. So, Ruski Yazyk, Russian language at Mill River, that's taught by me, and I'm so honored and I feel so blessed to be able to offer Russian to our students here at Clarendon. It's just amazing. We are the only high school Russian program in Vermont. There's one, and I actually just this past weekend met the one high school Russian teacher in New Hampshire. So we're trying to get Russian on the map for New England. It's a unique situation, so it's been different in different years, but this year we have one class period with 3 levels of Russian. So each of those Matryoshka dolls represents a level of Russian. And kids are coming in 7th grade, and some of them are staying through 12th grade. So it's interesting. Dr. Robinson experienced it the other day. So Russian takes longer to learn, not just because of the alphabet, but because of the grammar. However, we do try to keep up with similar topics and tasks that we're doing in the other languages so that the kids feel a commonality. Next slide.
It's going slowly.
Okay. So this year we also are offering middle school Spanish and French culture electives. Those are 1 semester electives. We are teaching them in English. We speak English when we do it, and we're learning about the products, practices, and perspectives of the cultures where French and Spanish are spoken. And just to give you an example of some of the things we're looking at geography, we're looking at art, education in those countries, music in those countries, foods, festivals, celebrations, and architecture. Some of those big C culture things. Thank you. So we are trying in our own way to get our students outside and beyond Mill River. So Vermont Organization of Classic and Language Educators has some contests every year. Those are within Vermont. One is a poster contest, one is a poetry contest. And last year, one of our Mill River students won a prize for her poster, and so she's very proud of that. We've had kids learn the poetry, but not be brave enough to perform the poetry at this point, so we're going to be working on that. There's also the NREC, which stands for National Russian Essay Contest. This is a contest that students write at school, and last year was the first year in many years that I felt that they were ready to try it. Given nothing more than a paper dictionary, the prompt and a pen, they write for an hour and a half on whatever the topic is. And we don't know the topic before they get it, so that's kind of scary. But last year we had 3 kids earn bronze medals in that contest. And then we also prepared 2 students, 2 brave souls last year who took on the New England Olympiad of Spoken Russian. And we took them to Harvard University on a Sunday where they gave their memorized utterances because they were first-year students. So they had memorized a poem, they had memorized some geography so they could point to places on a map of Russia. They had memorized some autobiographical stuff about themselves. And they had to go in front of Russian-speaking judges and perform. And they did it. They were terrified, but they did it. And they had a special Russian lunch afterwards. The beauty of that thing was that they got to meet other kids in New England who are learning Russian in high school. We won't talk about how they did compared to the Buckingham Brown and Nichols private school in Cambridge. But, they held their own, and those 2 each earned a bronze medal for their efforts. So that was nice. So students as teachers and community outreach. Back during COVID times, and I believe it was before we formally offered 7th grade as a full year of world language, we had this thing where, what can we do to jazz up life a little bit? It's COVID, it's kind of sad. So the French 3 students that year prepared little lessons to teach to the 7th graders, and we did it right here in the cafeteria. They were in tiny groups, all masked up. But each group of 3rd year French students had a different topic, and they taught that to the students. I don't know, you can see there it was an animals topic. And then Ms. Martin carried on that tradition last year, and with her Spanish 3 students, they prepared a lesson, and they went to the elementary school, and they taught in a 3rd grade classroom their lesson. And the other great thing that Ms. Martin's Spanish students have done, they raised some money with a little fundraiser here at Mill River, and they donated all of it to the Rutland County Humane Society. So future plans, we're just continuing to encourage our students to participate in these locally and nationally adjudicated events. It's one of the few ways we have of getting feedback on how they are doing compared to peers around the state and in other places. The kids loved going into the elementary classroom, so we're going to try to continue that connection within our own district. And I would love to try and get more interdisciplinary units with other departments. I did some forays into it last year, but sometimes scheduling makes it really hard to do. I have reached out to Stafford's culinary program because it occurred to me that this year, at least the Russian class on a block day works really well for a time period to do a lunch at Stafford because it's the period before lunch, and then there's flex block after that. They said, contact us again in the springtime, but my vision for that would be that Stafford students prepared Russian foods, and my students would prepare some conversation topics ahead of time, and the older students in that class would be heads of table to facilitate a little conversation at the table in Russian during a lunch at Stafford. And finally, this is another pie in the sky. Oh, sorry, one more.
Sorry.
Pie in the sky would be to maybe collaborate with the art program to travel to museums in Massachusetts that aren't too far away. The Clark has a beautiful collection of French Impressionists and other European art. And I've recently learned that there's a Russian icon museum in Worcester, Massachusetts. So that could be an interesting collaboration. So there you go. Thank you. Gracias. Merci. Spasiba.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
Questions?
Well, you know, we were trying to get apparently a world language program for the elementary school, and that hasn't been successful, but it's nice to hear that the older students are at least going down and giving some exposure and experience to the younger kids, at least. It makes a big difference, because then when they get excited, when they get to Mill River and
Yeah.
want to, you know, take the language. So that's great that you're doing that.
Yeah, and one thing I'm wondering, if you have resources about best practices for elementary world language exposure for children, like frequency, that sort of thing, like how often?
Small
should-
doses frequently, and honestly, lots of songs and music. I taught French for a while at Barstow. We started in 4th grade there, but any kinds of games, songs are a really good way to integrate it at the elementary level.
Great, thank you.
Sean was going to share a little bit, as you heard from Kristen when we were at Shrewsbury, you heard about what folks are doing there, but you also heard a little bit about the school goals from Kristen's perspective. So Sean's going to give you a couple of updates for Mill River's goals when we hear from departments.
I still just want to, shut up. How incredibly challenging it is to teach 3 different levels of language in one room. And I don't want to put Katya on the spot, but the amount of commitment, as someone who's recently been in that class, the amount of commitment to be able to diversify language learners at 3 separate levels inside one period, who are also developmentally at really different places chronologically, is really a gift that Katya has. And it's really impeccable and incredibly impressive. So we do great stuff at Mill River because we've got great people, and I just wanted to make sure that, like, in case people didn't realize how impressive that is. So just throwing it out there. I'm just going to give you kind of a top-end update of Mill River at the moment with some stuff there. Let me know if you guys have questions. And again, as you know, I like to shout people out at the end. It's one of the things that I just bring to the table. So a couple of great things. One, newsletters. We do newsletters every week, mostly. There's been a couple of times where I've missed it. It's been a thing. We're getting between 350 and 450 hits every week out of about 510 possible. So the bulk of the people that we send it out to get it. We are finding that a few of our people in Power School don't have updated email addresses. This is an ongoing problem we're trying to rectify. The one thing I've been telling people recently is that if you're not getting it to your email, it means we probably don't have it. So if you run into people in the community who have kids at Mill River in particular that aren't getting newsletters every week, it's likely a contact issue, and they can call us and we'll fix it. Shout outs down at the bottom for our wonderful high school football team, and I could spend like an hour talking about all the work we did for Halloween, but these are our faculty who were there for the very, very large costume party. You may not know, but school fair season has begun. We have school counselors who go out to school fairs to talk about how awesome Mill River is. A lot of these are like kind of awkward in that some of them are, we're one school of like 10 that show up to talk about stuff. Some it's only us. Some of it's an interesting place. And in some circumstances, it's just like kids who are there to like go look at stuff. Sometimes it's parents, and our team is just willing to kind of go and talk about how cool Mill River is. I share a 2-page handout I'm not going to go through. I thought it looked really cool and talks a little bit of some of our programs. When we link this in the final presentation, we can take a look at it if you want to, or share it out, be my guest. The other thing I want to show, let folks know too, is we're working on some promotional videos. Karen McCullough is working on doing some stuff so we can share, one with prospective parents and prospective hires as well. We're hoping to do some interviews of, why'd you choose Mill River? What does Mill River mean to you? Organization's been a little bit slow, school year's been busy, but check the newsletter. We're going to be reaching out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully before the holidays, to find some people who'd be willing to get on camera for a minute or two just to kind of blurb it. So that's a work in progress, so just know it's coming.
Just a quick question.
Please.
School fair,
Yep.
what does that mean?
So a number of the schools that have school choice in the community, in the larger
okay.
community,
Yep.
have nights or days, depending on what we're talking
Gotcha.
about, where schools who could be open to school choice go and present their programs.
Yep.
Most of these tend to be sort of like interest fair style, from my understanding. People get tables, and then sometimes it's parents who show up, sometimes it's for kids. Sometimes we just show up not necessarily 100% knowing who we're going to talk to. And again, sometimes it's 10 people, 10 different schools, and 30 kids. And sometimes it's a very interesting facet of the work that I don't know if people realize as we sort of work towards.
Specific schools?
Yeah, so different schools host different fairs. Some of them are a little more regional. I can give you more information about it. I don't have it at my fingertips right this second.
That's fine.
So yeah, we've been to 3 so far. It's something I didn't realize until coming on board that we did randomly, which has been cool, but people have been interested. We are in the process of developing a building goal for the year. When I came on board and we were talking about building goals, I was curious to know if people knew what the last year's were. And collectively, a lot of people didn't have a clue. And for me, coming on board, it was really important that we share that work together. In order to do that, it has taken like 4 times as long as anyone planned. But it was really important to me as someone coming in here to begin, one, with our leadership team. So all of our chairs, a few extra folks, meet in a perfect world every other week. There's been some challenges with schedules, but I really wanted to say, what is our community goal? From there, we then brought it to full faculty today to get some feedback on. Again, with everything going on, it's been a little tough to get everyone in a room together. I think there's still some wordsmithing to do, but I think we've settled close to a general idea, which is we want that Mill River is a place where all people are engaged, motivated, and want to be. It's a big goal. It's a very sort of visionary goal. We got to work from here to make that actionable. This is the work that we're doing right now. It's important to me as the principal, and I think for us as a leadership group, to share that work and the vision that we have. We have folks, and I'll bring this up in my next slide, but building a common language is important, and I think it's work that is meaningful that we're currently doing. So on top of that, each department has goals that they've designed for the year, and those are getting worked through into actionable items. These are organic and growing as we start talking about what are manageable goals, what are real goals for us, what are long-term things. But I think it's tough to sort of have meta conversations when we're in the middle of November, but it's still something that I'm pushing forward to have time in, and I think faculty have appreciated having some time and some room to do that work, because often it gets kind of left by the wayside when we have more pragmatic things to deal with. One of the other things we're working on is developing a common language among the faculty. This is something that I've been pushing really hard for. I can share this. It's just an image of what is a Mill River teacher. So we have people in the building who've been in the building since it was built, it feels like, so 35, 40 years. We've got people who are brand new coming in. And one of the things that happens with all of this turnover and different perspectives is, what does it really mean to be a Mill River teacher? Sounds simple. It's really complicated because people have really different visions of what that means. And so the work we began over the summer, as summer ended, one of our onboarding days was asking a lot of questions about different facets of the community here at Mill River and the processes by which we go on. So we had, I think, 12 or 16 different stations that people responded to about stuff that we do here in the building. And so we took that, building leadership took that information and tried to distill that into themes to try to really talk about what's the work that we do here? How do we communicate that to each other? How do we share those ideas so that we're all on the same page? Whether you've been here for a minute or you've been here for 30 years. So we're working through some of that. This is still works in progress, but it feels like important work because we have visions of Mill River and all of us contribute to that work. And so being able to say, here is our kind of North Star here, it then lets us start having interesting conversations related to how are we approaching these things? How are we talking to each other? How are decisions made? Not necessarily in an evaluatory way, but is a place of what is our ethos? How do we kind of do our business? So we're working through some of that stuff. Next up is what does a Mill River course look like? And I look forward to that work because it is interesting how very different people's perspectives of what a Mill River teacher was. And not exclusive. They weren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but like it is not a simple question to answer because so many people have put their hearts and souls into it and the work that we do. So to know that's work we're doing here. Struggles. Two things that we have run into that I think transparency is really important for. One, we've had a pretty sharp increase in contraband this year. We've had a really sharp increase related to vape pens, which are electronic cigarettes, essentially, that can be filled with all sorts of things. There's been a pretty sharp uptick of them. In order to respond to them, in some areas, we're trying to engage with community partners to provide some programming. That's been a little slow. People's resources are pretty strapped, so it's been a little slower than we'd hoped. We're shifting gears a bit to offer some of that programming internally and trying to figure out how do we free up some energy and some time to make that happen. So that's, I think, important, as well as some funding that we have to bring in some speakers to talk about it. Number two, staffing. We have 3 people who are on the injured list at the moment, which is a lot. It is a lot to cover what is essentially like 12 classes every single day. Tracy Spencer is our sub-coordinator. I want to shout her out. We've had as many as 16 staff out in a single day. 16 times 6 classes, it's a lot. And we get through, we have a small group of subs who are willing to come in, which is wonderful and amazing. We appreciate them. But frankly, the lion's share is covered by our existing faculty who are willing to give up their prep time to cover classes, or who are willing to think outside of the box. Sometimes it means we shove a couple of classes into the cafeteria where they're getting study halls. It's a reality that we have to deal with. It feels like there's been a new wave of sickness every single week. And it's a thing that happens. On top of the usual, which is additional training that people go to, or like just life happens. You know, we've got a ton of people with kids, and if I'm not sick, the family's sick. It happens a lot. But I want to just be open and transparent about that being an ongoing thing that we continue to contend with. Yeah?
Is injured list just like is it just extended sick leave?
Yeah. And so just people who are out, and that just creates additional strain on the system. You'll notice we have some long-term subs posted to help support that, but there are no bites for that. So we're trying to be creative. We have folks who have volunteered to do overages, so people are committing not just for the odds and end when I have a prep period a moment free, but are willing to give up one of their preps to cover a class full time. So we're working through some of that, and we're pretty optimistic about this being a short-term, relatively speaking, problem, but I just want to be upfront about it because it's something that we deal with every day.
Rare that we have 3 people in that kind of situation. It's usually 1. So.
Yeah. So it's a thing that we deal with. I also wanted to briefly talk about attendance and ESTs. They're just systems people may not realize are deeply, deeply labor intensive. So we have 2 people who work full time who cover our attendance system. It is a very detailed system. There's a link to a presentation Cindy Jarvis put together for you to look at your leisure. It's about 15 slides, so I'm not going to do all of that tonight. If you'd like to hear more about either our attendance system or EST, she's available to come in. And is happy to talk about that. ESTs are educational support teams. We work to develop plans for students who are having academic struggles. Again, very complex system where a lot of people are coming together, but I wanted to share both of those as things. Numbers are a little hard year to year at the moment, but I think it's worth kind of sharing out a few of these. So part of what we have to do with attendance based on numbers of days out are letters and affidavits, and there's a whole legal process attached to truancy. So numerically, just so we're kind of looking at them, this has both the 2023-2024 year as well as 24-25. The numbers are pretty low. I think they're pretty on par with what last year's looked like. Big picture, when we look at that 20-day letter, that would be kids who have missed 20 days of school so far, which again for first quarter would be a lot of time overall. Only having 2 is not bad, frankly. The team itself has been working really diligently to connect with families who are leaving the district and maybe didn't finish paperwork. We also started doing home visits again, which is deeply challenging. It's where our assistant principal, Ms. Stannard, and our SRO go out to the community and knock on doors to make sure kids are okay. And I brought that up, I think, one of my last presentations about them kind of doing that work. It is not a lot of fun, but they're doing it for the kids, and I think we're seeing outcomes improve because of that. Folks know that we're out and we care, so I think those have been positive things. So I share both of those. Hopefully we'll have more numbers to look at in the future. That EST number, that 31 versus 60, largely these are rollovers from last year and people who are kind of in need now who were probably in need last year. They're not brand new students. We started with a really heavy push in the beginning of the year, knowing that we didn't want kids to have a gap in support as the year started. Questions that I can answer for folks. That was a lot, I know. But I wanted to share stuff that maybe wasn't in the newsletter or things you may not have seen before to try to keep it lively on a Wednesday night.
This isn't a question, but it's a comment. I noticed today, the sign is up, and it's beautiful.
I got it in my shout outs. It's all cool.
Okay.
I just like to give
Okay.
questions
Oh,
before
sorry.
I just run through
it's
them.
And I think
Beautiful, though.
it happened today.
It happened today.
So-
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a really good story attached to it. I'll run through shout outs and just because.
Okay.
Number one, we have a great team of people who support our after school programs. They are largely working with our student athletes and often our middle school student athletes. If you have not had the pleasure of seeing a middle schooler after a long day of school, between a long day of school and before practice, it is without any fail the wildest time in this building. And these folks show up and deal with it and support them, which is great. So shout out to them. They were horrified that I was taking their picture today. Today was also one of the first times we had rock climbing and unified bowling, and there's a group of people who are going to music. It was like a lot of kids really unexpectedly. We lulled thinking it was going to be like 5 or 6 or 7, and it was like 50. And they were just like, okay, cool. And it was cool. It was great. They're doing good stuff.
And can you introduce them to us? If they don't want
yes.
their names known?
My brain is blanking really bad.
Oh,
right
yeah,
this
I
second.
can hear it.
So it's David's over there, and then Tony is over there.
And that's Kayla Jones.
That's Kayla Jones. Sorry.
Kayla comes over from Clarendon actually to do after school here
Cool.
after she's
That's
done.
great.
that.
Well, thanks
It has been
for
a
that.
really long day, and I really am apologetic about not pulling
Hurry up,
names.
we can send you
No,
home.
it's good. No, this is important too. This is really important. You may or may not know that we have 13 music ensembles. You may have heard that before. That's a thing. I don't know if people realize how impressive that work is. If you came to the concert a couple of weeks ago, it was standing room only in the auditorium. And when standing room, I mean like 40 people in the back who are trying to cram in together. It's exceptional work, and the amount of time that the kids are putting in. They're coming in the mornings. Bronson, I'm sure, can share some of that stuff. They're coming in the mornings before school starts. They're trying to eke out some time between when school starts and their practices start. And then we have faculty who are willing to come in at the crack of dawn to do this work and stay really late to do this work. Right at the moment, they are currently doing tryouts. There's a bus full of kids. I tried to get a picture of the kids on the bus, but they were all being like too silly, which is fine. And then when I said, I'm going to put this to the board, they were all really horrified because they're all middle schoolers. So just imagine that for a moment. But I also appreciate this is a picture from homecoming. We have we have roughly 180 people who are in our music programs. And depending on whether you ask our arts director or our athletic director, we may have 179 athletes, maybe, or it might be 180 athletes, depends on which day and who you're asking. They're similar numbers and there's a ton of overlap. It's a lot of kids who are engaging in our programs. And I think it's important to just acknowledge how unique that is. And then lastly, your sign is back, which is amazing. Dave and Barbie really didn't want public acknowledgement for their work. They believe really deeply, and I have via email that they are members of the Mill River community and are happy to help however they can. Their kids came through Mill River. They've been integral parts of our community, but unfortunately, I can't not say thank you. This is super cool. They took the sign down, scraped it all down to bare wood, filled in any stuff that had happened to it. Luckily, there wasn't a whole lot of graffiti and stuff, but there was a little bit. And then hand painted both sides. And from my understanding, the gold is gilding. So they got in there and it is epic. I tried to find them before they put it back up again, but they came in, put it up and ran, which we appreciate a whole ton. So humongous shout out to them for the work that they did. So it's cool to have the sign back up again. That's what I got. What else can I answer for folks, or do people have any other questions?
Thank you, and the newsletters are great.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they are.
And if you ever have questions or things you want to see or programmatic stuff, I could talk, as I've said a billion times, I could talk about Mill River for days. And so I try to give you guys highlights, but there's stuff specifically. There's so much good work that goes on every single day in the building. And people busting their butts and doing cool stuff. And sometimes, unfortunately, the hard part for me is figuring out how do I give you enough without kind of drowning you in pictures and cool stuff. So that's what we got. All right. Thank you so much, as always.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And it's always great to hear what's going on with our kids. So thank you. And I know it's been hard for you being sort of the new guy on the block. But I appreciate your hard work as well and your diligence in keeping Mill River going.
I appreciate it. Also, it's many hands make light work. There is a lot of people here
Yep.
who are deeply committed to the work that we do, and I am astounded every day by the hard work and belief that people put in.
Yep.
So it makes my job pretty easy, to be honest.
Well, and I would urge any board member that wants to come in here and walk around and check the
Visit.
place out. Some of us come in here more often than we probably should, but,
If you want a really good experience, lunchtime is a really unique period of time for the day.
Yes,
We
it is.
really give you a full 360 view of some of what our day looks like.
always interesting. Anything else? Again, I appreciate it, I really do.
Anytime.
Okay, then that's the Mill River update.
Thank you.
Thank you. And world language update, thank you.
Welcome.
Which brings us to foundations building
Almost.
temporary walls.
Skip one.
Speech
Oh.
language pathologist.
Oh, excuse me, I skipped one. Speech language pathologist, contracted services bids.
It's me, Lynn. I'm running out of language this time of night, though, but ironically. So it should have been included, I believe, in your packets. I had told you all at the last board meeting we had at Shrewsbury that I'd be back tonight to talk with you about the quotes for services for the providers that we procured. As I had sort of hinted at the last meeting, my recommendation for you all is that we do select VocoVision as the provider. Their rate certainly was among the lowest of the quotes that we obtained. And certainly I would, just want to emphasize that VocoVision, on some level is part of our continuity of service just because of our existing partnership with them. Believe it or not, we actually do get a bit of a discount with them for being a return client. So then that's not necessarily reflected here, but that is my recommendation. I am happy to answer questions if you have any. Pretty standard.
Are we still posting that position? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think you said this last time, Coral, right? That VocoVision understands that we may
Oh yeah, we would,
exit the contract. if
Yeah, we
hire
would drop
somebody,
them
and
immediately if
That's a
we-
provision that's
yeah.
reasonable in
Yeah.
the contract.
yeah.
And remind me again what schools it would be with?
So this position will serve Wallingford, Shrewsbury, and Tinmouth, and actually, as of today, it looks like there will need to be a couple students from Clarendon.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
So-
need a motion
We need a motion.
then to approve
Yeah.
Contracting with
Contract.
VocoVision.
Yeah.
with VocoVision.
Yeah.
Contract with VocoVision?
VocoVision, yeah.
I make that motion
As speech language pathologist.
for speech language pathology services, yeah.
There you go.
I second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Could have a long discussion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could probably, yeah,
Yeah.
right, for sure.
And thanks for your work on that, Coral.
Yeah, thanks, Coral.
Yeah, yes, you're welcome, absolutely.
Don't go
Okay.
too far.
So, do I try this again? Foundations building temporary walls.
Me too, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's a
I'm gonna
slow-
play my best Tim Hart this evening, and you guys can all tell him how horrible it
Tim-
was.
Tim did the work on the quotes
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
proposals,
Yeah.
and he'll be the one seeing the project through, but Coral can describe the need
Yeah.
for this and where it's coming from, because it seems like an interesting thing.
Actually, less of a project than it sounds, however, but there is the expense. So foundations, underwent pretty substantial renovation, as many of you will remember. However, part of the appeal of that building is that we could make the space customizable for student need. which is exactly what I'm here to speak about tonight. We have 2 students currently that, because of the need involved, they really need to have access to a self-contained space. I don't know if all of you have been in the Foundations building, but there are basically 3 what I would call like breakout spaces. All of those spaces are being utilized for different therapies, different instructional approaches, you know, that kind of thing. So we now have these 2 children that do need access to their own self-contained space. So Tim and I did a reassessment of the building to look at what are our options for meeting these needs and making this happen in a way that is, you know, most feasible for everybody involved. I can't have programming be disturbed in that building for any length of time. We've got, you know, about 8 kids over there right now. And I can't have a situation where we have, you know, safety needs being presented. So Tim and I took a look at the building. What we landed on as being the best option. When I say best, I mean most practical, most feasible, and quickest. We are able to essentially slap up some temporary walls that have a very permanent looking cosmetic appeal to them. You know, they're not cinder blocks necessarily, but they're also not like drywall either. They actually come in panels. But they are much sturdier than, like Pat, if you remember the partitions at Wallingford, they're much sturdier than those. So there's a bit of a soundproofing element that comes with it. I've never seen this before, but the cool thing about the walls is we can actually install doors within them so we can still maintain like egress and things like that. So the kids that are in the spaces will still have access to sunlight, and, you know, we can still maintain our fire standards and stuff like that. And I think it also will really, it's just going to add to the practicality of that building in terms of making more space available to the kids that are over there. So I believe the quote that Tim settled on is somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,500. And I believe it's from a company called Swiftwall is who we had been dealing with. So that expense comes to you tonight for a motion.
And reason that comes to you is because this is an unbudgeted expense. So we've been talking during budget season at our finance meetings a fair bit about money we have earmarked for special education tuition. So if we have students whose needs are such that they access a program off-site, that's what that money is earmarked for. There is funding there that we are not using. And this seems like an appropriate transfer because we are trying to serve a student's needs who are a little higher than anticipated. So what could turn into a tuition situation, we're trying to cover in-house. So it seemed like the most logical place to transfer funds. If we're transferring more than $2,500, we're always coming to you. So that's the reason it's in front of you tonight, if that makes sense.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of temporary walls.
From Swiftwall.
Swiftwall.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, now I have a question. So they're temporary, so does that mean they can be moved around?
Essentially, yes, yeah.
So that if you need different spaces. And the
Yep.
second, are these isolation rooms or are they instructional rooms?
Instructional. I would not call them isolation at all.
I didn't think so, but
opposed philosophically
I
to
figured
that.
I'd get that out
Good
there.
to have.
We're pretty opposed to anything that would be seclusionary or isolationary in nature. But it is a space that just offers extra room for instruction for some of the kids. Yeah. And then they can also move freely.
I mean, I have been in there and it is 2 big rooms, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, looks like
Thank you, everybody.
that's unanimous. There you go. Thank you again, Coral.
Yes, thank you.
That brings us to committee reports. First up, personnel. That'd be me. We met tonight, and we have a couple of things. We have and I'll make a motion that we offer a contract to Mackenzie Belando, 1.0 full-time equivalency, educational support staff.
I can second.
Kim, second that. Discussion. Where is this, Brian?
Wallingford.
This is.
I'm sorry.
Do you know where's Mackenzie going to be housed out of? Because it will be supporting the speech language.
I'm going to venture to
Oh.
just say, like, her home base is probably going to be at the central office. So much of her work will be liaisoning, is that a word, Carol? I don't know. Liaisoning with Cheyenne Kazakis and I,
okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess if we wanted to call her home base Wallingford, we
No,
probably
that's
could.
that's not.
Because
what I
she'll be supporting the contracted speech
Yeah,
language
yeah.
pathologist
Right.
services.
Yeah.
So she'll be
Wherever
a little
that
all
may
over. Yeah.
take her.
Good question.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Next is we have resignation from Ryan Harvey, who is one of the tech people, tech innovation and support specialist here at Mill River. And he has made the decisions just to step down from his role. And I can speak to the fact that Ryan helped me tremendously when I was without internet. So I would make a motion that we accept the resignation of Ryan Harvey.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Questions, discussions? I think it's important to understand that we have, excuse me, and BJ and the tech department have done lots of things to try to maintain and keep Ryan
To support
here.
Ryan, yeah.
But that's the decision that he makes. So, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next is in the Personnel Committee, and I know the board received in their packet, central office longevity pay adjustment for the fiscal year 26 budget. These are non-union people. They don't fall under the teacher's contract. They don't fall under support staff contract. And they're central office folks.
And we would say that they are support staff equivalent.
Yeah.
So if they fell under a master agreement, they would be support staff. There are some arrangements where our master agreement outlines who can be part of collective bargaining. And there are some positions that can't be because of the nature of their role.
Right.
So these are those folks that would otherwise be on the support staff contract, but are not allowed to be.
And I think it's fair to say we had a great deal of discussion in personnel, and I don't mean that in a bad way, looking at trying to get a handle moving forward on staff and salaries and where people fall and where they line up and those kinds of things. Stan was the one who presented to our committee, and as you can see, it's based on, each amount is based on the number of years of experience. And the intent is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, to sort of get these folks on an equal footing with others who have received increases via contracts, or not contracts.
Just being hired later.
Just
when
later
it's,
hires, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a fair way to put it.
So
So I think.
we need another motion.
Yeah, we
need a
would ask
motion.
for a motion to adopt this for next year, so fiscal year '26.
So I'll make that motion since we had it in personnel.
I'll second it.
Please.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was at personnel, so I was going to second it.
Okay. Discussion. And again, I'll say, as chair of the personnel committee, I think, and Steve, this sort of impacts you as well, looking at finance, that down the road, it would be nice if we could somehow simplify salary schedules and contracts and those kinds of things. And I know we just, agreed to a 3-year thing with the teachers, and we're getting ready to negotiate with the support staff.
Yep.
So I just think, and other folks have expressed their opinions, that it might be a good time to take a look at how this all works.
And a big question we had, Stephen, earlier was about the financial impacts of doing that work. And that's where my recommendation was that we have a conversation through finance with a ballpark from Stan about how much it would cost. If it's doable from a finance perspective, then we can definitely sit down and do the work and try and prep something for, for teacher negotiations. That would be, we're in year 1 of a 3-year contract.
Right.
So we've got some time to do it and some time to think about it. But I think that would be, definitely a conversation that if the board wants us to move that direction, absolutely, we would love to move that direction too.
And I think it's important to understand that what has been agreed to was agreed to by the teachers' union as well.
Sure.
So it's not something that the board has imposed
Yeah.
on anybody. It's been a mutual
Yeah.
kind of deal.
And we can have a different mutual deal down the road if all are agreeable to it. Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion?
One
Yes.
thing I just forgot to ask during personnel, we don't have like an adjusted cost of living pay increase year over year, do we?
No, what, I think that would typically be something that when we're negotiating with the union, they would bring us those types of numbers as part of their ask for what they'd like to see.
And
Is
for,
that
for
fair?
non-union?
For non-union folks, what we would typically do is we would say, support staff negotiated this. You would otherwise be support staff, so we would come to the board to ask for that same increase for you. So that's what we've done the last several years. So if support staff negotiated last year was 5%, so that in theory covered cost of living and whatever other rationale the support staff had for asking for that amount. And we came to the board last spring to ask for that for non-union folks.
That's
Yeah.
helpful, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Awesome, thank you. I think those folks will appreciate the value you put on their years and dedication in the district. So thank you.
Okay, so that takes care of personnel. Policy. H2 second read, which is fan.
Spectators at school events.
There you go. We don't have a,
No. Jody, do you want to speak to the policy?
Sure. So this policy is a pretty brief policy that's just intended to say that that the board supports the general spectator guidelines that have been added to the Mill River Handbook and to the athletic handbook. that says that we strongly encourage and have specific guidelines around spectating at all performance events here at Mill River that require us to be supportive and positive of all participants, whether they're visitors or home players or performers.
And I think it just helps support the administration as they go about their business at extracurricular activities.
Absolutely, and it helps our coaches and our refs and our players feel supported by the board as well.
Right. Yeah.
Is this a new policy?
It is a new policy.
Never been a policy,
It has
huh?
never been a policy. It came up at the end of last year when we were seeing an uptick in some struggles. And so Kim and I went and looked at other boards' policies for some models, and this is one we liked out of New York State, another small rural district. So we amended theirs and brought it to the policy committee.
There is admin procedure.
Oh, okay, but no policy, that procedure, now you have a procedure that's
Is
covered
supported.
by a
The
policy.
policy now backs it up.
Yeah.
So we actually didn't have specific set guidelines. We had a general specific thing that said, please, be
nice.
respectful. But we didn't have really specific breakdowns of what that looked like in the
Ron,
past.
go ahead.
So it sounded like you said it only applies at Mill River. So does it only apply to home games, or is it wherever the teams go?
So in general, our procedures and, so our board policies apply at Mill River, but our procedures would apply to Mill River folks wherever they are at school events. So I guess, let me parse that out. It would apply to any spectator if they were on Mill River grounds, but any player or representative of our faculty or students anywhere for code of conduct.
So we couldn't necessarily exclude somebody from an away game if something came up. We would not just sit by and watch it happen. We would have
No.
conversations with the admin at the away game, but we have a lot more we can do if it's a home game.
Well, and I think, oh, I'm sorry. Kim.
No, I just, that was a good question.
And I also think if you follow extracurricular activities over the past couple of years, it has not always been, and I'm not talking about Mill River, I'm talking about in general in the state of Vermont, it has not always been very pleasant. There have been issues. And so I think this will help the folks here.
And in theory, the more athletic directors in the region work together and talk about what's working, what's not working, you would hope to see other districts in the region having a similar policy so that things would play out similarly, but right now they might not. So something that might happen at one of our home games and be dealt with, we might see it in an away game and it not be dealt with.
Yeah.
It's just the
I think
reality
that's
of where we are right now.
you were talking about.
Yeah.
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 Okay?
Yeah. No, good distinction.
Yeah.
I know it's not public speaking, but could I make one comment? Simply that if you ever would like to see like exceptional behavior, spectator and athlete behavior modeled, please attend any unified sports events that you are aware of, that you are made aware of, because they are always wonderfully inspirational and yes, supportive of everyone.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Thank you.
Great to point out, John. Yeah, we don't just have spectators who are problems. We have lots of spectators who are awesome too.
Yeah.
And unified sports is a great place to go to see that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, right?
No.
No?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, I was going to ask.
So we were having all this discussion and we haven't even,
Uh-huh.
Okay,
I
so.
think we turned to Jody for the introduction and we never got into real discussion, which we
Okay.
maybe should have, but.
So, does someone want to make a motion to accept policy H2?
I'll make a motion to accept policy H2.
Thank you, Gray. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion.
Further discussion.
Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, next. Bill,
I'll pause you. Don't we have a meeting next week for policy?
yes, we do.
Is that 5:30?
So the next meeting of the policy committee will be November 12th at 5:30, hybrid, in this room.
Awesome.
And I'll back up, and the next Personnel Committee meeting is December 4th at 6:30 here. Thank you for that. Buildings and grounds.
Oh, that's,
Have we had one?
Stephen, yeah, we had that like, back-to-back finance.
Oh, right before finance, that's right.
Building and grounds
That's
and
right.
finance. And we decided, well, can I talk for that meeting? Let me see, I might have even taken notes. But, first of all, we decided we definitely need an hour.
Yep.
We tried a half hour, that didn't work. I guess we don't have any, there's nothing to be approved, right? We talked about
Correct.
the situation in Wallingford Kitchen, and we had some public comment on that, and the refrigeration, and we talked about heat pumps up at Shrewsbury. Oh, there's the whole minutes. I was just looking at my little scratch here. And we talked about at our next meeting, I think, trying to get priorities around like the floors in all the
Carpets, yeah.
schools.
Yeah,
And-
replacing carpets.
Yeah, replacing carpets, and whether we should do that as a district-wide project, and maybe that might invite more.
Yeah.
That was
I
my
think that's a great
thing.
idea.
Invite more bids, because it's a bigger project. So we're gonna, I think, follow up on that, and Stephen, probably knows better, but, I'm not Stephen, I'm sorry, I keep calling
Tim.
him Stephen, I mean Nick,
Oh, Nick.
the chair. And, his brother Stephen, sorry, they're all, I know them all. And so we're gonna try and maybe look at that 5-year plan and come up with some projects that can be grouped together, that we might be able to kind of contract out together to bring in more bids, because they're just not getting bids.
And to add one thing to what Carol just shared, the heat pumps at Shrewsbury, the refrigeration at Wallingford, and the outbuilding at Wallingford, the B&G committee told Tim, go seek quotes on those, bring them to us. So the next B&G meeting, we may have some things that do start coming to the full board for approval, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know if we scheduled another meeting, I don't see it on my calendar, so.
I don't think so.
Do you know?
At the time, we did not, but Nick sent out an email. Nick asked, would the 25th or the 26th work? And Tim said they would. Rebecca, do you remember, did we set on the Monday or the Tuesday?
I do
I can look for that.
Okay, so meeting to be announced.
Yeah, that Monday or Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but we'll get it out.
Okay. Anything else, buildings and grounds? Moving right along, community engagement.
Hello. So our next meeting is going to be November 20th, I think at 6:30. Does that sound right? A couple of members here. And we really want to look at the feedback loop and how we're responding to comments and questions we get at community or community conversations. And we'll probably try and schedule a couple of community conversations, but more towards, maybe after the budget is finalized, we can do a couple. And Pat completed the activity calendar for November and December. I've got it queued up. I'm going to mail it out to you guys and the principals, and invite the principals and you guys, anybody, to update it if there's events that might be interesting to the board that aren't on there. Things like world language activities or things like that. So that aren't just on the main event calendar.
And things coming up really soon. Saturday, there's the competitive robotics in the library in the afternoon from 1 to 4, and also the Interact Club dinner at the Rotary in Wallingford from 5 to 7. And also, there's a play coming up at Moreover Clue. It's coming up November 22nd and 23rd. So those are things that are come up. Also, Clarendon has a K-2 concert on November 20th. And there's a holiday fair November 16th in Clarendon, too.
Thanks, Pat.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, I just sent it, so you guys all hopefully will get it. Thank you,
Anything
Pat,
else for
doing that.
community engagement?
Nope, done.
Excellent. Negotiations,
We are,
Still reading, right?
yep. We are still just waiting to hear back on dates to get started from our support staff folks.
alrighty. Finance.
It's me. You can hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, so we had a finance meeting on October 29th, was our last meeting. We got presented with a new rollover budget, a rollover budget light, that shaved off another about 0.5% increase, so it was a 3% increase. And we saw a 2% and a 0% increase budget proposals as we had requested of Stan and Brian. We as a committee, finance committee, have asked to work with the 3% increase budget with some small tweaks and changes, including an addition of 2 elementary school math interventionists, which is something that has been community support for, adding some math intervention in the schools, in the elementary schools. So that is the budget that is going to start becoming our draft for full board approval, and we'll be looking at that at our next finance meeting. And before that happens, in about a month, we will also get the December 1st letter from the Vermont Commissioner of Taxes. And this is something that when we get this bit of information, it's going to set us up for clarity of what our district, we'll be able to then calculate our district tax rate, so our district rate prior to the town tax rate affected by the CLA adjustments. So that is something that's coming in the next month. Both of these things, the district first letter and then our December 12th.
That sounds right.
Yeah, December 12th is going to be our next meeting where we'll discuss this latest draft of the budget, how the December 1st letter and tax rates, and how that's going to, what we're expecting to see for district rates after that. We're going to have some conversation of surplus strategy, because we had a little bit of that started at our last finance meeting, but we didn't have time to really continue on it and wrap it up. So we have a 3-year kind of strategy for dealing with our district surplus, and we're gonna kind of keep discussing that at this next meeting. And we also had some conversation related to, we just heard from a Buildings and Grounds update, about thinking about strategy around buildings and grounds and potentially addressing some potential big ticket items like floors in all of the schools as a ballot measure. So some thought and discussion around that at the next finance meeting. So a lot happening at this December 12th finance meeting. This is kind of maybe the big one for the year, hopefully.
What time?
Hopefully the big one for the year.
30.
5:30.
Does that sound like a pretty
What
good
time is the-
synopsis of where we at? Do folks have questions, thoughts, additions to that?
No, I think you did a great job. Stephen, what time did we say we're going to meet? 5 or 5:30? 5?
I think the minutes reflected 5:30. We can do
Oh, okay,
5 if folks
5:30.
want to do 5,
No,
but
5:30's fine. I think, yeah, I don't.
I can look again, but I
I think we may planned 5:30.
yeah.
And maybe, we were leaving, if Buildings and Grounds wanted to try and fit in an hour before that, it sounds like it's gonna be a different day
Okay.
maybe, but. Do folks want to change that to a 5?
No, I just was wondering.
Okay, we can leave that 5:30.
Okay.
On December 12th,
Stephen, I actually have something I want to, it's a little bit of a hand grenade I want to toss out there. Maybe isn't relevant for your next meeting, but given the results of our election yesterday, I think we need to put on the horizon of finances the possibility of some fairly catastrophic changes in federal funding to education. It's not going to happen tomorrow, obviously, but I think there's a distinct possibility that that's coming down the pipe next year.
We could, and Gray, we could speak to that reasonably easily at the next finance meeting and just let folks know what an impact in loss of federal funding would look like. Would that be useful? We can do that pretty easily.
That's what I'm talking about. I wasn't suggesting that we need to come up with solutions or, some detailed plan, but just to have it floating out there in the back of our minds. So that would be perfect, I'd say.
Yeah, if we always like to have a 3, 4, 5-year plan, then that's a reasonable thing to be thinking about. Yep.
Unfortunately, yes.
all right.
That sounds like the right way to handle it. Thank you, Brian.
That's easy enough. Yeah, no, good thought.
Okay.
Excellent. So things are moving forward. And folks would like to attend. This is a good one, a good meeting to attend. Moving on, we have payroll warrants. So payroll warrants for November 6th. Let's see, actually, for October 16th in the amount of $7,396.15. October 25th in the amount of $627,722.22. November 1st in the amount of $7,454.73 for a total of $642,573.10. Is there a motion to approve these payroll warrants?
I'll make a motion.
Is anyone second?
I'll second it.
All right, is there any discussion? All in favor? Somebody in the room
We're good.
can help me with the count there?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, and our accounts payable warrants. We have a general fund in the amount of $87,484.36. Officials in the amount of $3,647.50. Replacement checks in the amount of $1,413.74. General fund in the amount of $67,666.85. ASP in the amount of $1,653.38. And lunch in the amount of $3,581.19. And a transfer to food service to general fund in the amount of $89,985.60, for a total there of $255,432.62. And then we have student activities as well. Mill River, $2,512.67. Shrewsbury Mountain School in the amount of $1,818.17. Tinmouth in the amount of $1,417, and Wallingford in the amount of $93.38, for a total there of $5,841.22. Do I have a motion to accept these accounts payable warrants.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on these? All right, all in favor?
And again, we're good here, Steve.
All right, thank you. I think that's all I have. Again, meeting on December 12th, and there's a virtual option. Thank you.
All are welcome.
Okay.
I was trying to get a newsletter actually to send you for the materials for this meeting, and I didn't quite get it all together, so expect that in the next week or so. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Next, transact other legal business.
We need two.
That's where I was going.
Yeah. We need two. We need board chair and board clerk, because Nick's gone, to sign warrants. And do we want to make a motion each, or?
Yeah, probably.
So a motion for maybe Len to sign as board chair, because he's been acting as board chair.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Okay, who's going to be clerk?
Who's going to be the clerk?
Sign for the clerk on behalf of the board.
Make a motion for Carol to sign.
Yep. Second that. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Good.
Thanks. Agenda building.
So next meeting would be the 20th. We've got community engagement scheduled right prior to that. This would be our 10th meeting. We would also have on our schedule board goals or board education. And I would wonder, Bronson, would you want to give a student update at that meeting? If you don't think you can make that meeting, we can have you when we're back here December 4th.
December 4th at 7 p.m.
Yes.
It's a band concert that night.
Okay,
So
fair
probably
enough.
not. I'll see if I can make it.
Okay,
Yeah.
right on. We can put you on there, and if something pops up and you don't get there, we'll do agenda building, we'll put it back on. Yep. Does the board have a sense of if they want to check in on goals or do an education piece?
Brian and I talked today, and one of the things that came up in our conversation was the opportunity for the board to just take some time and talk about what you might need as board members, what you have concerns about as board members, not necessarily goals or those kinds of things, but sort of a checkup.
Things you wish you understood a little better, but there maybe hasn't been a great place to ask those questions yet. Is that reasonable?
Yeah. I don't know how people feel about that.
So that would fall under board education, but it would be less of, hey, we have a topic today, and it would be more of, hey, what are the things that you're wondering about that you don't think you understand?
And are you thinking we just bring that to the board, or would we kind of send that ahead of time to Brian?
Well, you can send it ahead of time.
Which I don't mind, whichever way you wanted to do it.
I just felt it was important that we, as board members, take the time, particularly with budget and finances and all of that stuff. And I know even myself, I'm not familiar with how everything works. And that's what kind of brought that up today in our conversation.
And I wonder, what if we did this? We could block off the time, and if questions took us 5 minutes, we could look at goals. If questions took us 25 minutes, we wouldn't look at goals. Is that reasonable? Start with questions and see how long it goes?
Are folks okay with that? I mean, that was just an idea.
Yeah, you can all say no.
I also think it'd be a good idea to just refresh ourselves on what the goals were that we set, just
Fair.
even if we don't necessarily have a lengthy conversation, but just, oh yes, this is what we said we were doing.
And I'll throw I'll put the goals in there as materials no matter what. And then even if we just spend a minute on it, I think we can make sure to do that.
Okay, great.
Okay. So Tinmouth, goals and questions, possible student update. Anything else we think we need to do? Okay. If things pop up, let us know. We'll be getting that together and warned next Thursday-ish. So if something pops in your head, email Andrea. Email Andrea, email Josh, email myself. We'll get it on the agenda.
Okay. Executive session.
We do have a need for one.
We do.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, Bronson.
Can I please just introduce myself tonight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now good? All right. Hello, everybody, members of the public, the board. For those of you who don't know me or haven't yet to read my name tag, I'm Bronson Patch. A little bit about me. I live in Clarendon. I'm 17. I'm a senior here at Mill River. I've been in the district since preschool, so I've been here possibly longer than some of you. Well, fun fact.
Not me.
I yeah. Mom was telling me that. I was a student school board rep last year as well. I wish to, after high school, go to college, become an aerospace engineer. Some of my areas of focus are about classes themselves. I've taken many AP and dual enrollment courses, used many flexible pathways options. So one concern, while we're in budget season, and I make sure I don't forget about it, because senior year is so incredibly busy, I'd like to ask the board, please allot funds to teachers handling independent studies, because as a small school, they're like for AP French, and I'm taking one more independent study, especially senior year, once you kind of get out of sync with some of the typical schedules. It's hard for teachers to have an actual specified class for each that is best helped each student. And in past years, I know you guys have done this, but with the property taxes last year, you guys, I think, dropped it, or might have been a couple years prior. But I would like to ask you to put that back in, if possible. I'm also involved with many clubs and extracurriculars, and music, Interact Club, Student Council, the Robotics, Model UN, Ultimate Frisbee is a sport I love, and it's been growing the past couple years. And I'm also a ballot clerk at Clarendon. Saw a couple of you yesterday. Along with that is I was reviewing some of the board's policies and goals and stuff in the past couple weeks. I would like to encourage you to take another look at District Policy B10, tobacco prohibition. I found some typos in there and some stuff that is incorrect. Like, you guys call yourself the Mill River Union Supervisory Union, which is not in any of the other policies, and it's not the name of the district. So the policy committee is what I found on the district website. I'd also like to ask the board members to provide and or update your personal statements on the website. It's a little messy. There are only 4 of you that have provided statements. And that's less than half, and only some of you have pictures, and it's a little messy. So just to remind you of that, because I know it probably not at the top of your priorities list, but just put it back on there. And then to especially give you a personal invite to the Interact Veterans Day dinner, the Glue play, and the band and chorus concerts coming up. Just a few of the things that I remember. They're on the sheet, and then I'd like to say the clue is 22nd, 23rd, 7 p.m., and then the matinee at 2 p.m., and another 7 p.m. show on that Saturday. And then that's all for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bronson.
Okay.
So we would need a motion to, let me make sure we're doing the right one unless somebody pulls their sheet out faster.
And it's a race. Yep, there you go. That's it.
For purposes of contract discussion. So we would want a specific finding that premature public knowledge would place the board at a substantial disadvantage for discussing contract. somebody will need to make that motion.
Well, Carol's got the sheet.
I'll make a motion, we enter executive session for the purpose of discussing contracts that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the board at a substantial disadvantage.
I'll second that. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And then we actually have to make a motion
Yes.
to go into executive session.
Len is exactly right.
So I would make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Okay.